Hello, everyone, and welcome to Direct Snap, the top-level sports NFL weekly talk show. I'm your host, Connor Groel, as usual, and I'm very excited for the show we have today. I've done a little work on a few new graphics here and there, so hopefully you guys will enjoy that. But if you heard my preview to this show this week, which I put out yesterday, it basically said all you need to know about the first 3 weeks of the NFL season, and simply the Browns have a better record than the Patriots. That is all you need to know. Things have been crazy. Dolphins are 3-0 with a 2-game lead in that AFC East. Again, every week we've seen crazy things coming out. Pat Mahomes, Ryan Fitzpatrick have been the quarterback stars earlier on in the season. And, of course, some of the old names, Drew Brees, having a great year for himself as well thus far. But as you can see, for this week's show, we're going to start with the top stories as always, and then we're going to take a look at a lot of these teams after the first 3 weeks. There's a lot of teams, again, playing better or worse than we expected. Teams that were getting some Jekkyl, Hyde, a little bit of both, have beat some really great teams and have lost to some really bad teams. So a lot of surprises, and we're going to try to talk through those in our second and third segments. And then, as always, second half of the show will be the power rankings and the game predictions. Trying to do a little better than last week. Last week was a rough one in the pick'em for me, but we'll try to have a better week 4. Without further ado, let's get straight into the show. First segment, the top stories of the week. First one, Vikings crushed at home. This was a crazy game. I mean, a 17-point favorite is something you hardly ever see in the NFL. Thanks for tuning in, Gerardo. And that was exactly what the Vikings were. Vikings were 17-point favorites against the Bills. Bills were 0-3, lost 47-3 in that first week to the Ravens. Changed quarterbacks mid-game, Josh Allen replacing Nathan Peterman. And, got crushed in that one. Got crushed the following week against the Chargers so bad they had a cornerback retire mid-game. So everyone had basically ruled out the Bills as, maybe the next Browns, a team that could be chasing that 0-16 this season, especially 0-3. My goodness, taking on the Vikings. The team, 1 win and 1 tie so far in the season, but one of the best defenses, and their tie came on the road against the Packers. So people thought the Vikings were really good, top 5 in my power rankings. And everyone expected them to win big, and I even took them. I said I would never usually take a team favored by 17 points against the spread, but I had to make an exception for how bad the Bills had looked. But it just wasn't the case. Bills storm out of the gate. Couple quick touchdowns. They end up leading 27-0 at the half. That game is 24-0 early in the second quarter. A few Bills. Well, first of all, Josh Allen leads a great drive for a touchdown to start off the game. But after that, a couple fumbles, back to back for the Vikings gives the Bills great field possession. They get another 10 out of that, 17-0 before you can blink your eyes, and it just gets worse. 27-0. Vikings finally do get a touchdown in garbage time to make it 27-6, but that's about it in this one. It was a boring game. The Vikings constantly fumbling or punching the ball away. No real threat at all for the vast majority of the game to even put a dent into the Bills' lead, which was incredibly surprising. Again, Dalvin Cook, the starting running back for the Vikings, was inactive for this game, and a lot of people thought it would not matter. But if you looked at the Vikings' play calls, obviously it did matter. There are debates over what is the ideal, 50-50 pass run. I think in the modern NFL, it's much closer to probably a 2-1 pass run that you're looking for. But the Vikings threw the ball 55 times. Of course, depends on the team as well. But throwing it 55 times and running just 6 times. And Kirk Cousins, 2 of those were scrambles. So really only 4 designed runs all game long. Only 2 carries for the backup running back. Name is slipping me. Give me just a few seconds. Latavius Murray, of course. Just 2 carries for 1 yard, and that was a lot. That was a guy I think a lot of people were picking up as potentially a fantasy play for week 3. And he did catch a few balls, but just 2 carries for 1 yard and then another 2 carries for a rookie running back. So this is a really confusing game. If I'm going to be honest, I wouldn't take it as much of a sign of anything for both teams. I think the Bills are probably still going to be horrible, and the Vikings are probably still going to be a playoff team. But it's just a really weird one. It's one of these kinds of games that you can see in the early weeks of an NFL season, when teams don't exactly have it all together and there's still a little trial and error going on, especially with injuries. You never would expect the Dalvin Cook injury to have that much of a substantial effect on just the play calling for the team. But Kirk Cousins, there he is throwing the ball 55 times. And to be fair, most of it in the second half was forced passes. You're not really trying to run the ball down 27 points. But still for the game, just 5 yards per attempt. It's pretty poor. Couldn't get anything going. Thielen somehow found a way to still finish with over 100 yards because that's just what Adam Thielen seems to be able to do. But other than that, crazy, 18 to 1 and to 20 to 1 straight up. So Vegas, saying the Bills basically win this game 1 out of 20 times. And for football games, sports in general, that's a pretty crazy line, but for an NFL football game, almost unheard of. And the Bills getting the win, so a huge shocker. That was our top story of the week, but some other top stories. You're in, Rook. All 4 of the top 4 quarterbacks drafted in this year's draft are now starting quarterbacks. Sam Darnold obviously has been the Jets starter since week 1. Had a great week 1 performance after throwing a pick 6 on the first career play. Rebounded very nicely and led the Jets to a huge win over the Lions. Since then, has struggled a little bit, but is still clearly the starting quarterback moving on. I don't think they're ever going to take him out this season, barring injury. Thank you, everyone watching on Facebook Live. Josh Allen, of course, for the Bills, just talked about him a little bit. Replaced Nathan Peterman during that first game, that huge blowout loss to the Ravens. So that's the 2 quarterbacks, but then 2 more will be making their first career NFL starts in week 4. And those are Baker Mayfield, the number 1 overall pick drafted to the Browns, and Josh Rosen of the Cardinals. These guys each saw their first NFL experience getting on the field in week 3. A little bit of a mixed bag here. Baker Mayfield obviously takes over for Tyrod Taylor and leads a comeback win over the Jets. Huge highlight performance for his first game, getting him the starting job. Josh Rosen, a bit of a different situation. He comes into the game late in the fourth quarter with the Cardinals trailing 16-14 to the Bears. Throws a pick on his first drive, gets another opportunity, and throws a few incomplete passes, and that's the end of that one. But obviously they have confidence in him moving forward, and even if they didn't have confidence in him moving forward, the Arizona Cardinals are the worst team in the NFL now definitively after this Bills victory. So really not much to lose, especially with Sam Bradford being not inspiring is about the nicest I can say about Sam Bradford's performance, and it remains to be seen if how many more teams are going to give the Sam Bradford experiment a try. He's been better at some places than others, had a bit of success with the Vikings, but he's always been a guy that's never really lived up to his career expectations. So who knows if this is the end of the starting quarterback trail for Sam Bradford, judging by his ability to continue to get starting jobs. I would say no, but this was not a great showing if this is the end of the Bradford era following just 3 weeks in Arizona. One starting quarterback, the last quarterback drafted in the first round that we have not seen start yet is Joe Flacco of the Ravens. Is Lamar Jackson still on the bench? The Ravens choosing to go with Joe Flacco, their former Super Bowl winner. And I think Joe Flacco's had a rough last few years. There's no doubt about it. So the drafting of Lamar Jackson, I think, was a real wake-up call to him. You got to come out and you got to have a strong start to the season, or else your job could very easily be in jeopardy. And that's what Joe Flacco's done. Ravens are 2-1. Stats are 889 yards, 6 touchdowns, 2 picks. Had a little bit of troubles early on in that Week 2 matchup against the Bengals, but almost got the comeback victory. And then strong performances against the Bills and the Broncos, leading the Ravens to a successful start, tied for first place with the Bengals in that AFC North. So the Lamar Jackson experiment, if it is coming, will have to wait just a bit longer. Joe Flacco doing very well. As we move on, roughing the passer. Now, this is one I really wanted to make a point to talk about. We've had 34 roughing the passer penalties through these first 3 weeks of the season. And historically, we're about doubling the pace of the last few years. You can see 16 through the first 3 weeks in 2017 and 20 in 2016. So about double the amount of roughing the passer penalties. And we saw 4 of them in the Bucs-Steelers game last Monday night. That was crazy, tied most for a game since 2001. We've also seen Clay Matthews, I think, has been the biggest name in the news with these roughing the passer penalties. Yeah, Audubon Joe. Thanks for tuning in. Brian, Gerardo, everybody. But so the new emphasis for this roughing the passer is body weight. The rules are a little vague because it feels like all these NFL rules, all these controversial rules are a little vague these days. But essentially, we're trying to protect the quarterback. It's just the next rule in a series of rules designed to try to protect the quarterback. And basically, when you're sacking the quarterback, when you're trying to bring him down, you cannot, what the refs deem as intentionally putting, well, not even intentionally, but you cannot take him down and then finish the sack with most or all of your body weight on the quarterback. They're basically trying to prevent guys crushing quarterbacks into the ground, which in itself is, a worthy goal or a noble cause. That's kind of why we've had roughing the passer penalties in the first place. But if you go back and you watch some of these that Clay Matthews specifically has been called on, we're getting really ridiculous. Things that look like routine tackles, just because they're finishing the play, finishing the sack. People are calling them for roughing the passer, and again, it's just getting ridiculous at this point. William Hayes tore an ACL. He's a defensive end for the Dolphins on a play where he sacked Derek Carr on a critical 3rd down of their win last week. But trying to adjust his body to avoid the penalty. We've seen similar things happening with Myles Garrett for the Browns in that game against the Steelers. And an important thing to realize here is you have these, the football plays are real fast. These plays are happening in, 3, 4, 5 seconds. And you got 250, 300-pound guys running full speed at quarterbacks. And there's just not a lot of time with these new rules for them to adjust themselves to be able to safely make what the refs are trying to deem a safe tackle. And what it feels like is, in an attempt to protect the quarterbacks, really putting the defenders at risk, which is where I think a lot of the controversy surrounding this new roughing the passer rule is coming from. Why is this rule for quarterback? Yeah, the whole rule is dumb, Brian. It's kind of ridiculous. And again, I have no problem with roughing the passer calls because roughing the passer has been a penalty in the league, forever. But it's just this new emphasis on body weight, which is kind of ridiculous because, you're supposed to, primarily you have to make sure you bring the quarterback down. And there's a lot of elusive guys, a lot of strong guys. Cam Newton comes to mind. Ben Roethlisberger comes to mind, that if you just, try to, two-hand touch him and say, okay, Ben, time to go down, it's not going to happen. It stems from, again, you make the point about just rule for the quarterbacks. And in recent years, with a lot of these guys that Tom Brady's and Aaron Rodgers and Cam Newton's. There has been this continued emphasis on protect the quarterback, protect, stars of the team, the money makers, the league's biggest faces, whatever. But we're going too far. And a lot of guys have been talking about this. I'm not going to use a lot of the more vulgar terms I've heard about these penalties, because I've definitely heard some things. But the game's, it does feel like the game's getting soft. And you always appreciate the league trying to make things safer for the players. But this isn't a rule, I don't think, that's good for the league and is really safe for all players. I think it's just trying to protect the quarterbacks, and it's adding some unnecessary distinctions to what is a tackle. So now we have what is a catch, what is a tackle, what is, all this stuff about possession and guys going down. And it doesn't make complete sense. And this is something the NFL Rules Committee or the Competition Committee, whatever they talk about, the guys that decide what is a catch and all that, they've definitely taken notice of this, because fans are not happy, players are not happy, coaches are not happy. How can you coach this? Again, look up the Clay Matthews roughing the passer calls the last 2 weeks. Like, these look like your example tackles. And all of a sudden, guys can't do it. And if guys can't feel like they can't play to the best of their abilities because because what used to be a clean tackle is now they have to worry about getting flagged, because you would much rather try to go softer or give the quarterback room or whatever than give up a 15-yard penalty and a first down, because the penalty for roughing the passer is very severe, as is most defensive penalties, resulting in automatic first downs. So, and there's been a lot that have happened in game deciding situations. The Browns won against the Steelers with Myles Garrett. The Kirk Cousins one, the Clay Matthews on Kirk Cousins last week. If that penalty is not called, the Packers win that football game. It's an interception. The Packers start kneeling. It's over. And this is just rough times for the NFL. In this post-CTE worries and injury apocalypse and all kinds of buzzwords that we're throwing around, the ratings and whatever, all these buzzwords we're talking about with the NFL these days. It's really interesting to see how they're going to move forward with this. We need some more clarifications, or maybe just a bit of common sense, because these roughing the passer calls do not make sense. Moving on. Last of our top stories of the week. Offensive bounce back. This is good. This is really good for the league. You want to talk about bad things for the league? This is good. We've had a lot of points scored in the NFL in the first 3 weeks. 5 teams averaging over 30 a game. You can see it right there. Chiefs over 39 points per game. And either 37 or 38 points in each game. 1 second for the exact. Yeah, Chiefs have scored 38 points in every game. At least 38. Saints 35, Rams 34, Bucks 34, Ravens over 32 points per game. League-wide, teams are scoring 23.2 points per game. If this holds over the season, it would be the 3rd highest scoring season all time by per game scoring averages, trailing only 1948 and 2013. Everyone loves to see points, but why is this a big story? It's because we did not have a lot of points last season. Just 21.7 points per game. And we saw a lot of, defenses, like the Saints defense came out of nowhere, almost like a top 3 defense last season. Crazy stuff. And that led to, and a lot of injuries to key players. The Deshaun Watson goes down, the Carson Wentz goes down. A lot of contributing factors. But 21.7 points per game was the lowest total since 2009. And when people are worried about the NFL with controversies and kneeling and whatever, what the NFL can't be is boring. Because when the NFL turns boring, that's the most important thing of all. For a league, it's the entertainment factor. That's why these things exist in the first place. It's because people want to watch it. That's why there's all this controversy about the WNBA. People think, and I'm not going to go into my spiel about the WNBA. The crux of the argument is they need to be paid more and they need to be marketed more and treated more like a real league, because it is a real league. But a lot of the haters say, no one wants to watch it, so they don't deserve to be paid. They're lucky they're professionals, yada, yada, yada. We watch sports to be entertained. And of course, there's the social factors and whatever. But it is for entertainment. And if we get to a point where football is boring, no one's going to want to watch it outside of defensive coordinators. So, and you might not think 21.7 points per game is much different than 23.2. It's only 1.5 points per game difference over last year to this year. But if you put it in perspective, that means every other game, there's an extra touchdown. Because that 1.5 is per team. So each game has 3 more points in it. Per game, that's an extra field goal. Per 2 games, that's an extra touchdown. That's a close game-winning drive by Aaron Rodgers against the Bears in week 1. One of the highlights, if not the highlight moment of that week 1. And that's a play that might not have happened. It's entertaining. Is it entertaining? The Raiders aren't entertaining. Yeah, Brian, again, I think in general, scoring more points is good for the NFL. Because it's not going to get out of hand. We're realistically, we're at this mark of 23.2. We're not going to see more than 24 points per game scored in the NFL this season, just because it is just significantly higher than we've ever seen. There are some college games that are 63 to 58, every now and again, and you think it almost gets boring to watch because the defenses are hopeless. And some people just love that. Some people love points all the time, every time. Yeah, I can talk about the Flyers mascot later too. I mean, I don't know if I can find words for it, but But I think in general, points is good. Yeah, and everything you have to put, you have to put on your glass. You have to examine it a little further. There's some garbage times, and some of these teams aren't as exciting as others. The Raiders, I think there's a little entertainment value in watching the Raiders just to see John Gruden's faces when everything goes wrong. Khalil Mack versus the Raiders defense through 3 weeks. I brought up that stat last week. Khalil Mack in almost every major category is still doing better than the Raiders defense. He has as many or more forced fumbles, fumble recoveries, sacks, interceptions, touchdowns. The Bears as a team have nearly as many sacks on the quarterback as the Raiders just have hurries. John Gruden said it is hard to find a great pass rusher in this league, hard to find a good pass rusher, hard to find a pass rusher in this league. I would disagree with that. There's a lot of pass rushers. But if you want to talk about great pass rushers, he gave up the greatest. Or at least one of them. And I apologize for this little tangent. This isn't fully answering even the question I set out to answer. But I think in general, points are good in the NFL. There's your simplest hot take of the week. Points are good. That's enough for the top stories. We're going to move on. We're going to look at the biggest surprise teams. I got 4 of them for the first 3 weeks of this NFL season. Biggest surprise team that is 3-0. Biggest surprise team that is 2-1. 1-2 and 0-3. There's only 3 3-0 teams and 3 0-3 teams in the NFL this season. So those ones should be pretty easy. And we're going to start with a 3-0 team. Well, the biggest surprise, it's not the Rams. It's not the Chiefs. The Chiefs have been a pleasant surprise, but not the biggest surprise. Without a doubt, the biggest 3-0 surprise so far this season is the team that started my power rankings ranked number 32, dead last. That's the Miami Dolphins. Some concerns about strength of schedule, for sure. They've beat up the Titans, have somehow managed to steal games against the Texans and the Jaguars. I don't know how they did it, and I'll talk more about the Titans later. But win over the Jets on the road, dominated that one, especially the week after the Jets blew the doors off of Detroit. I think this is a typo. They beat the Raiders 28-20, I think was the final score of that one. But yeah, this is a team, and I can talk, all I want about poor strength of schedule, and I can talk all I want, about them not having the star players, and I don't think they'll still make the playoffs and whatever. But wins are wins, and in the National Football League, it's tough to get wins. I just said there's only 3 teams that are undefeated, and the Dolphins are one of them. So whether they deserve the wins or who they've played, it doesn't really matter because they're 3-0 and they're marching on. They're playing the Patriots this week. They could, with a win, be 3 wins above the Patriots through 4 weeks. That would be absurd. That'd be really, really, really absurd. But it's possible, And I think the Jets, not to spoil my predictions segment, but I think they'll lose to the Jaguars. And I think the Bills will lose to the Packers. So if the Dolphins beat the Patriots, through 4 weeks, they'll have a 3-game lead in the AFC East. And at that point, it doesn't matter if they're the best team in the AFC East or not. Good luck catching them. There's plenty of time. It'll be difficult even for the Patriots, especially with how the Patriots have looked over the last couple of weeks. So, good for the Dolphins. Biggest 2-1 surprise for me is the Bucs. Fitzmagic maybe died a little bit in the first half against the Steelers. It went Fitztragic. And with the loss, they were unable to have the Fitz hat trick. But still, ridiculous start for the Bucs. Fitzpatrick becomes the first quarterback in NFL history to throw for 400 in 3 weeks in a row. 48-40 win in New Orleans. Like, come on. And after the game against the Falcons, what's up with the Saints playing in these shootouts? It's the Saints of old. It's not the Saints of last year. It's the Saints of old. But they're winning them this time. Well, they're winning against Atlanta, not Tampa Bay. But for Tampa Bay, they beat the Saints. They beat the defending Super Bowl champions. And they almost have a big comeback against the Steelers. And the Steelers looked, woeful. And they're still a team searching for identity after 3 weeks. But the Steelers are a very good football team. And they climb back into my top 10 in the power rankings, which we'll do in, 5-10 minutes. Biggest 1 and 2 surprise is no surprise, the New England Patriots. Now, when you're talking about the Patriots, you always have to remember not to get over your head. Because for the large part of 2 decades, people have just been wanting the Patriots dynasty to end, Especially, people really thought it was over in a game against the Chiefs in 2014. And the Patriots, it was a very similar situation to this. I think the Patriots were either 1-2 or 1-3 or something, along those lines after that game. And what did they do? They won the Super Bowl that year, and they've reached the Super Bowl 3 times in 4 years. So you can't count out the Patriots. But this is not the Patriots team of old. Tom Brady, for the most part, still have confidence in him. Age doesn't really matter. He had a rough night against the Lions, but I'm still pretty confident in him. But, a close win against the Texans, and the Texans have proven to be not great. And then just got manhandled basically 2 weeks in a row against the Jaguars and the Lions. Those games weren't close. And the Jaguars scores a little close, but the Jaguars just dominated the whole thing. So they're surprising. This is a huge game for the Patriots at home against the Dolphins. Now I just talked about it with the Dolphins, but it is a huge game for them. Gotta win this one. And the biggest disappointment 0-3 was the Texans, a team I thought could make the playoffs. They're 0-3. Obviously they're not dead, but 0-3 teams historically have about a 2% chance of making the playoffs, so don't get your hopes up. One thing you can say about the Texans is they haven't got blown out yet. All these are one-score games. But, and this is off to week 3, they were home against the Giants. I would know because I was there. And the fans in that stadium, man, it definitely felt like everyone was calling for Bill O'Brien's head by the end of this one. Really predictable play calling. And, just not a lot of creativity. They had a great offensive push in the second half, but a couple turnovers ended their hopes of a win in that game. But 0-3. And Deshaun Watson has not been great. Has not seen that return to form that we were expecting following the craziness of 2017 for him. And, who knows how much injuries are a part of that. But he's got 2 great wide receivers in DeAndre Hopkins and Will Fuller. So I think it's more defensive. I think it's the secondary. The secondary has had a lot of problems. So that's that. Jekkyl and Hyde teams, quickly run through a few teams that I don't really know what to think of. And when I'm trying to rank them and I'm trying to talk about them, it's tough to know what to say because 1 week they're great, 1 week they're world beaters, and the next week feels like they're losing to the Bills. Decided to pass on throwing the Vikings in this, but you get the idea. Jacksonville Jaguars beat the Patriots and then lost to the Titans 9-6. So who knows what to think about that. Leonard Fournette was out. And maybe they didn't think they needed him, but, they did. So then, crazy. The New York Jets, huge win over the Lions. And then all of a sudden dropping 2 games to the Dolphins and the Browns, giving the Browns their first win in 2 years. Not exactly looking great, Sam Darnold, but obviously much more than just him. And the Washington Redskins, a team that has not played. I mean, this has to be the most boring team to watch in football right now, and not necessarily that they don't have spark. Adrian Peterson, for one, has been really great in their 2 wins. He's top 5 in the league in rushing. But this is just a team that has not played in a close game yet, so it's tough to really know what kind of a team that is because they have not been tested. They were down big against the Colts in that loss and never made it interesting. They were big early against the Packers, and the Packers never really made it interesting. And the Cardinals are the Cardinals. The team looks pretty hopeless. So, time will tell. Redskins on bye at week 4. But coming after the break, we'll look to get a better idea of who they are. It's the first half of the show. Moving into the second half, as always, power rankings and predictions. Power rankings, 8 at a time, starting from the bottom. Here we go. 32, no surprise, the Arizona Cardinals. Good thing for the Cardinals is they more than doubled their scoring output from the first 2 weeks of the season. In week 3, first 2 weeks, put up a grand total of 6 points and then dropped 14 against the Bears. A real explosion. 14 points. I'm still taking the loss. Raiders blowing another lead. I don't know what this. That's back-to-back weeks. The Raiders blow a double-digit lead. The Bills get their huge win, but again, I'm skeptical. I can't put them. I suppose I can throw them a few spots higher. I should probably have them right under the Browns. But that whole game to me just feels like such a fluke. Such a fluke to the point that I need to see more. I need to see him play another good game before I can think about really giving him some credit. 49ers going way down. And this is where I talk about not necessarily how they've played the first 3 weeks, because they'd be a little better, but my confidence in them moving forward. Because Jimmy Garoppolo has torn his ACL, and down with Jimmy Garoppolo goes, all the hopes for the 49ers. New starting quarterback is CJ Beathard. And, color me unexcited. It's going to take a lot of convincing for me to hop on the CJ bandwagon. I think the 49ers are done. I think the Jets and the Texans have a better chance than, no, I still think the Jets probably have a better chance moving forward than the Texans. I think the Texans are looking pretty bad at this point in time. Browns moving up, Giants moving up. But again, not too significantly, because look at the teams they beat. Giants beat the Texans. Browns beat the Jets. And you can find them in the power rankings right now, 27-28, so not proving too much. And yeah, the Raiders are that bad. Heading into 17 through 24. And this is where we get a lot of the teams that have, shown a good performance or two, but not really ready for them to move up into the top half. And what's funny is I'll actually pull up. I will pull up. Here we go. So we'll look at the middle 16 actually. Now we'll do 2 and 1. What I think is very funny about these power rankings is a lot of the teams in that 17 through 24 have beaten teams in the 9 through 16. And a lot of those teams might have looked better this season than the 9 through 16. If you compare the total records of these two groups, they're nearly identical. But this 9 through 16 group is a lot of the teams that we had higher expectations for at the beginning of the season and have disappointed. And this other group are teams that we thought were not very good, that have looked decent, still need a little more proving in the next couple weeks if these teams can pick up a few more wins. These two groups of teams could, in theory, reverse. But I don't think it'll happen. I still think a lot of these 9 through 16, I still think the Steelers are going to be pretty good. The Packers, the Patriots, the Chargers. The Chargers have 2 losses, but Chargers have played a tough strength of schedule, and that is an understatement. There are 2 losses coming to the Chiefs and the Rams. Hello, number 1 and number 2 undefeated teams in this season. So a few notes. The Lions at 21 with their big victory over the Patriots. Kerryon Johnson becomes the first Lions running back to rush for 100 yards in a game in their last 70 games. Yeah, that's dating back to 2012. That's one of the more ridiculous stat lines in the NFL that we've been keeping up with for years now. For years, it's been who will be the next Lions running back to hit 100. And, Reggie Bush came close a few times. Theo Riddick came close a few times. I'm sure there have been others that have come close. But this is the first time it's happened in 6 years. Pretty crazy. Again, the Chargers with their tough strength of schedule keeps them at 11, moving up even after the game against the Rams. And, they still lost by, I think, 10, 11 points in that game. But at this point, if you can perform like that against the Rams, I mean, good on you. The Rams look that good. Okay, 2013. Is that a correction on the Bills stat? 70 games. Yeah, that would be 2013. That's poor math. But looking at some of these other ones, Broncos uninspiring. Case Keenum, again, struggling. Seahawks getting a good win over the Cowboys. Ravens picking up another nice win. Bears moving down because, they nearly lost to the Cardinals, 16-14. So there's that. I want to talk a little bit about the Steelers because, again, Steelers are a team without identity. Now there's all these Le'Veon Bell trade rumors, going to the Jets, going wherever. I'm not really going to believe anything about this story until it hits its conclusion. He's either going to be playing for the Steelers or he won't be. And until that happens, really, I don't really feel like talking much about it anymore. All this drama. Antonio Brown in the offensive line, and Mike Tomlin losing the locker room. Here's what it comes down to. The Steelers have felt like a train wreck. Outside looking in, if you're just looking at headlines, they've looked like a train wreck. But in reality, this is a team that's still 500. They're 1-1-1. And they've committed the most penalties in the league by far. 37 Steelers penalties. That's 9 more than any other team. If they get the discipline together and they forget everything that's going on and they just play football, they're number 2 in total offense. The offense is still killing it. The defense has not been the same since they lost Shazier. But the offense is still killing it. And again, they have to realize if guys are angry at your team's performance and you're still batting 500, you're a half a game out of the division. I still think this is going to be a football. I think this is clearly still the favorite in the AFC North. If I had to call right now, I'd say 10-5-1. They're a good team. They will end up this season as a very good team. They just got to get over everything that's going on and just play football because they can win games. Straight up. Here's top 8. Rams, Chiefs, no surprise, 1-2. Again, these teams have each scored more than 30 points in all of their games. All 3 Rams games, they've scored 33, 34, and 35 points. Chiefs have scored 38 twice and 42 in their 3 games. Here's the difference between those 2 teams, though. The Chiefs are also allowing more than 30 points a game. They've needed Pat Mahomes to have 13 touchdown passes, most in NFL history through the first 3 games of a season, for them to be 3-0. They've needed every bit of that offense, every ounce. On the other hand, the Rams are only allowing 12 points a game. Much stronger as a full team. Easily the best team in the league right now. Eagles, not looking great, to be honest, in that game against the Colts. First game back for Wentz, but they got the win. And on a week where the Jaguars lose and the Vikings lose and the Patriots lose, can't believe I didn't talk about the Patriots, but yeah, way down for them. That's what happens when you look bad twice in a row. Obviously, ton of room to move back up, but I'm not feeling the Patriots right now. But yeah, that's what happens. You win a football game, you move up more often than not. Especially when the teams above you all lose in games they definitely should not have. I mean, let's think about this. The Jags lose to the Titans. The Vikings lose to the Bills, and the Patriots lose to the Lions. So yeah, I think the Eagles can safely move above those three. Saints moving up into the top 5. Panthers right behind them. The entire NFC South is in the top 10. 5, 6, 7, and 10. What a division. What a division. And even at 1 and 2, I mean, the Falcons can't play defense. Save their lives against Drew Brees. But they're throwing up tons and tons of points. Interesting enough, the Falcons have been ranked 7th every single week of the power rankings. Started out at 7. Lose to the Eagles, not too bad. Stayed at 7. Beat the Panthers, stayed at 7. Lose to the Saints, stayed at 7. That's a tough strength of schedule right there. Still a good team. One more week for Luck. Luck, don't hold your breath. Andrew Luck is on the injury report for the Colts. Still a full participant in practice, but oh boy, Andrew Luck is on the injury report for the Colts. So, oh my God. Whatever. And of course, the Vikings moving down 4 spots. That's the end of the power rankings. Only one thing to do now. Let's pick them week 4. We're going to try to glance past this 7 and 9 week last week. I mean, it was tough. I mean, we've already talked about all the upsets. I mean, and there's some that I missed. I don't know, a little upset about myself for, but you'll have a few weeks like this every season. And we move forward. Vikings, Rams. Yeah, did a little bit of an overhaul to this pick'em graphically. I like it. Vikings, Rams. Rams favored by 7. This is still a good Vikings team. 8 in the rankings. Going up against 1. This is no Elite 8 matchup. This is just week 4. 7 points is a lot for a team as good as the Vikings. I expect them to have a better performance this week because it's impossible for them not to, outside of losing about 83-0, in which case it still might be a better performance than losing 27-6 to the Bills. You never know. But we will take the Rams. This was a really tough one for me, spread-wise. Could easily go either way on this -7. But at the end of the day, it's close. I'm going to take the Vikings against the spread. I would not bet on this one in Vegas. I'm just picking it against the spread because that's what I do. But this would not be one I would wager money on. Jets, Jaguars. This one I found comical. The Jaguars are favored by 9 points. Last week, they only scored 6. So, there you go. This one might be a push with a final score of 6 to -3. I think the Jets can find a way. -3 points. I think the Jets can find a way. Real talk, Jaguars, clearly. But not by 9. 2016. Dolphins, Pats. This is the big one. This is the big one. The Dolphins could very well find themselves with a 3-game lead in the AFC East over the Patriots if they win this game. And I keep repeating it because I can't believe it. It's absurd to think about. That's the spot we're in, and they'll play the game. Patriots are at home, by the way, so if the Patriots lose this one, it is officially time to hit the panic button. I don't think they will. 23-19. But I don't like the Pats to cover. I need the Patriots to blow someone out for me to gain some confidence in this team. You know, the Patriots can win this game by 7 points, and it really won't change my opinion of them too much. Still a team that's not in form. Still a team that feels like they're on the end of their dynasty. Although it's very dangerous to say about the Patriots, but I'll at least give them this one, and we'll see how they look in Week 4. Eagles Titans. Eagles favored by 3 on the road. Titans surprisingly have 2 wins. Thought they would lose against the Texans without Marcus Mariota. Somehow they won a game with Blaine Gabbert at quarterback. Then they did the unthinkable. They won another game with Blaine Gabbert at quarterback. Huh? What? Now, Blaine Gabbert did leave in the middle of that game. But this was a game that had 5 field goals in it. And he had already gotten them a couple field goals. So, why not give him another win? Not this time. I actually don't know who's starting in this one. Blaine Gabbert. I would assume Mariota. Actually, it must be Mariota. But Eagles by 7, covering that spread. Texans Colts. Colts favored by 1.5. I like them pretty easily. Score might not really indicate that, but not a lot of 1-point games in the NFL. And I don't think the Texans are going to win. Sorry. Texans look bad. That's truth. That's truth right there. 21-16. And, the Andrew Luck, whatever, continues. He's hurt, he's not hurt, he's playing good, he's playing poorly, it doesn't matter. He's quarterback in the Colts. Bills, Packers. This is how bad the Bills are. The Bills can win a game that they're supposed to lose by 17, by 21 points, turn around, essentially play the exact same team because the Vikings and the Packers tied. So play another team in that same division, also on the road, that tied that other team, and they're still 10.5-point dogs. That's how bad the Bills are. Can they have 2 miraculous victories in a row? Has a team ever won 2 games back-to-back as double-digit underdogs both times? I have no idea. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find situations where a team is favored or a double-digit underdog wins the game and is a double-digit underdog again. I don't know if that's happened before. I'd say probably, but, far from normal. Look, I don't think the Bills can do this twice in a row. I'm sorry. The Packers' defense isn't even that great. But I can't see them doing this twice in a row. And if you want to give the Bills more points, then just make it 35-20. Because how are they going to stop Aaron Rodgers? I talk a lot about Aaron Rodgers for the primary reason that he might be the greatest quarterback ever. Did not have a great game against the Redskins. But great quarterbacks usually do not have bad games twice in a row. And you're playing the Bills at home. In theory, this is a dream. Lions, Cowboys. 3.5 favorites are the Cowboys. This line surprised me. Well, I guess retrospectively, it doesn't surprise me too much. Usually given 3 to the home team. Both 1 and 2. But these 2 teams definitely had very different performances last week, for sure. The Lions were great, and the Cowboys were not. Cowboys at home. Cowboys offense has been really bad this season. Only averaging 13 a game. Dak Prescott has not been great. Offensive line still, injuries, whatever. I saw an incredible statistic. I will try to pull this up as I am speaking about Brock Osweiler versus Dak Prescott in each of their last 13 starts. And you might not. Yeah, I have this up now. You might not. There's a lot that goes into this, obviously. It would be ridiculous for me to try to make any sweeping statement with this. But over their last 13 games, Dak Prescott, 2,396 yards. Osweiler, 2,326. Dak Prescott, 10 touchdowns, 11 picks. Osweiler, 11 touchdowns, 12 picks. So, there you have it. If I haven't made my prediction evident by yet, I'm taking the Lions. 23-20. Bucks Bears. This is a devious line as well. Really, really tough one for me. I'll be honest. My original score prediction for this game was 26-24 Bears. That would have been a push. I don't predict pushes. That's kind of lame. 24-21 Bears. Tough one for me. I think, obviously, a lot of questions about who the starting quarterback will be for the Buccaneers now that Jameis Winston is eligible. But, and Dirk Cutter has not made the formal announcement, but everything I have been seeing suggests that it will continue to be Ryan Fitzpatrick. And I think you almost have to start Ryan Fitzpatrick after the first 3 games he's had, even if you think Jameis Winston might be better. And I think Jameis Winston is a PR nightmare regardless. I think you just kind of have to start Ryan Fitzpatrick until things go tragically wrong, which, they will. I have no doubt the Bucs will be 3-6 at some point after these first 2 wins. But yeah, Bears in a close one. Bengals Falcons. Yeah, we can run through the next few. 31-28. It's going to be a lot of points because those are the kind of games the Falcons like to play. You saw them play against the Saints. A crazy one. So 43-37 overtime score. 44-38, one of those. Yeah, it's a lot of points. Not quite that many in this one, but there'll be a lot of points. Seahawks Cardinals. I have as much faith in the Cardinals winning a football game as I do of Bama winning an NFL football game right now. And a college team will never come within 5 touchdowns of an NFL team. So I guess the Cardinals can do better, but the Cardinals, man, do they look bad. 2014, Browns, Raiders. Raiders are the favorites, and I disagree with that. I'm taking the Browns. 2 wins in a row. Let's go. The Browns could be undefeated for 3 consecutive. No, I'm sorry, that's not correct. The tie came in week 1, but back-to-back weeks for the Browns. Let's do it. I mean, you're against the Raiders. So just win. Just win. Saints Giants. Giants finally get the first one of the season after benching Eric Flowers. Coincidence? I think not. Chad Wheeler did okay in the first half, and J.J. Watt got active, and after Eli Manning in the second half, Eli was still stacked 4 times in this game. Yet it was a big offensive line improvement. He had a great game, Eli Manning did, 25 for 29. Only 4 incompletions, 296 yards, and a pair of touchdowns. Silence the critics, Eli. 297 yards. That 1 yard makes a lot of difference. Will they beat the Saints? They're at home, but probably not. The comments about the spider 2Y banana. Anyways, Here's just a great stat. I needed to call this one out. Eli Manning and Drew Brees combined for their careers. 471 games played, 468 starts, 10,831 completions, 124,005 yards, 838 touchdowns. If that's not legendary, I don't know what is. That's a quarterback matchup. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to put Eli in the same category as Drew Brees, although I will argue Eli Manning for the Hall of Fame 100%. But that's just legends right there. 31-27. I like the Giants have another good offensive game, but Drew Brees is just too much. Chargers favored by 9.5 at home against the Niners, and I'll take them to just barely do it. Barely do it. Get the win by 10, 27-17. Again, CJ Beathard starting for the Niners in place of Jimmy Garoppolo. No! Towards ACL. I immediately regret doing that. Anyways, Ravens, Steelers, Sunday Night Football. 3-point favorites are the Steelers. I like the Steelers to win the game. It's going to be a close one against the spread. These Steelers-Ravens matchups are always close. It's another 26-24 game. Why do I want to make every game 26-24? Almost did that one for Bucks-Bears. Did it for Browns-Raiders. And did it with Steelers-Ravens. 26-24, Steelers by a deuce. And Monday Night Football, Chiefs, Pat Mahomes' Army, favored by 5 on the road against the Broncos. In night forecast, yet another big game for Pat Mahomes' Army, 30-20. I mean, live it up while it's happening. The Chiefs' offense right now is beautiful. And they're just going to continue to throw up tons and 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 tons of points. Yeah, we're a few weeks too early to talk about breaking the Broncos' most points in a season record. But they're doing it through 3 weeks. 30-20. That's the last game of the week. That's the show. And as always, at the end, I'll open the floor up to any questions. I'll hang around for another few minutes if anyone's got anything to say. But that's a wrap for Week 4 Direct Snap. I've been your host, Connor Groel. It's been a fun one. And I realize I say that every week. Part of it is just trying to make the show sound good. But realistically, I had a lot of fun this week. I thought it was a great show. A lot of things to talk about. NFL's chaotic. Try to make sense of some of the madness. You know, we got a lot of teams looking unbelievable. And I believe it. The Rams, the Chiefs. That could very easily be the Super Bowl right there. If you told me it's the Super Bowl, yeah, of course it is. Because those have easily been the best 2 teams in the league. And those are the only 2 teams that I'm really confident in winning a game. You know, only 2 teams I feel confident in winning anything right now. Hopefully that'll change in the next few weeks as things start to solidify. We get a better idea of who some of these teams are. Some of these Jekkyl Hydes, we find out if they are Jekkyl or if they are Hyde. But really not a lot of confidence in most of these football teams right now. Feels like anybody can win, and that's any given Sunday for you. Early Super Bowl predictions. Well, I just gave you one. Chiefs-Rams sounds like a good one. Sounds like a good one to me. Who else can play in the Super Bowl? I think a lot of teams can make the Super Bowl. I think it's too early to rule out a lot of teams. Too early to rule out the Patriots for sure. And the Steelers. And the Jaguars. Those 4 are still the front runner for in the AFC. I think it's too early to rule out the Chargers. Beyond that, I think we're starting to stretch it a little bit in the AFC. I don't think I can see anything out of that 5. No, I'm not throwing the Dolphins into the mix quite yet. Still a long ways to go for them. And the NFC is just completely wide open. I mean, I guess the Rams are the clear front runner, but once you get past the Rams, the Packers are capable, the Vikings are capable. Realistically, probably the entire NFC South minus the Buccaneers is capable. Saints, Falcons, Panthers. Eagles are capable. And the Rams, that's 6 or 7 teams. I think it'd be pushing it to add in anyone else. I think it'd be pushing it to add in the Bears or the Bucs. But, a lot of great teams in the NFC. Sleeper prediction. I mean, I'll say the Chargers, sitting at 1-2 right now with losses against the 2 superpowers, the Rams and the Chiefs. So the schedule only gets easier from here. Good news for them. I mean, if it got any harder, they have to be playing the 84 Bears or the 72 Dolphins or the 07 Patriots, rather the 85 Bears. Most rushing yards at the end of the season. That's an interesting one. I guess to finish, from my AFC sleeper, I'll say the Chargers. My NFC sleeper, I mean, it's tough to really say a sleeper because all these teams are pretty established. I don't know. Can I call the Falcons a sleeper? They won the Super Bowl 2 years ago. I don't think I can really call any of those teams I mentioned from the NFC sleepers. Maybe the Vikings after what they did last week. Most rushing yards at the end of the season is interesting. Now the NFL's leader in rushing is the Cheetah, Matt Breida, for the 49ers. 274 yards, is tied with Ezekiel Elliott, also 274. McCaffrey, 271. Todd Gurley, 255. Adrian Peterson, 236. Saquon Barkley, 216. I think we have a few front runners. I think we have 4. And considering that I'm about to leave Adrian Peterson out of this list, he'll probably win the rushing title. Realistically, I think the 4 are Ezekiel Elliott, Christian McCaffrey, Todd Gurley, and Saquon Barkley. Hesitant to throw in James Conner. First of all, his average is only 3.9 right now. There's also Le'Veon Bell concerns. If Le'Veon Bell plays for the Steelers again, he's not going to do it. Joe Mixon, has been great, but he was injured this week. Philip Lindsay got ejected this week. So there's that. I'll say Todd Gurley for the rushing leader. Based on workload primarily, that and the fact that he's an amazing football player. But he is also leading the NFL with 62 carries through 3 weeks. And does not take a rocket scientist to figure out that if you carry the ball a lot, you have more chances to gain yards. Wow, that's wise. Connor Groel, words of wisdom. If you're a running back out there and you're looking to get yards, try carries. Carries are a good way to get there. All right. I think we've reached the point where I'm starting to lose it. It's been a fun show. Connor Groel, of course, Top Level Sports, Direct Snap. On your screen the whole time, you've seen the Facebook, the Twitter, toplevelsports.net, the full website. Thanks for tuning into the show on Facebook Live. Until next week, I'm out. See ya.